多是多怕多。等一下找出来。
大家好，今天是2022年的8月15号，现在是澳洲东部时间啊，
把那个大横幅往后
中午的11
退
点。
把人放在中间。
这里是墨尔本，这里是中领馆门口。
把大横幅往后退，把人放进来，好，人全部进来，全部进来，同修全部站在横幅的面，对对对，好。
真爱。
哎，前面一定要紧扣。
那个能不能往上升啊？那个往上顶，往上升，往上升。
你是拍照还是 YouTube？ 拍照。啊，那 YouTube 交给我了，你们到时候用大家媒体用一下我的链接就行。
什么事？你手里这个口服需要再打吗？没有地方，你打了看不见。打到边那这个根本不管它了，因为打到中共这个打压到事先
用这样的，
你要说话的是吧？
到时候说话用你那个吧。
你要说话的吗？
他这个，我准备。
充满电的。
但是这个
那个下次你问高健大哥借一下这个设备。
他这个是好的呀。
我操，现在我们的设备比你们的好了。
好啊，你借了你还运过来。
没事，我到时候你跟我们说一下，我送过来给你们。
啊，
现在我们的设备比你们的好了。
这个我们还有一个比较经常用，
他叫到你再来呗。
他这个话筒现在是有问题。
We got no microphone stand.
这个电池你检查了没有？没安到吗？刚安的。
刚安的新电池。它这个里头松的，我估计这个电池。往上这里。啊。但是那个用你那个喇叭比它的声音都大。
出来了。一个麦克风。
它只有一个。这个麦克风，这应该有2个麦克风。
对呀。
那只有一个。可能还得配个麦克风。
它旁边还有，它那个包旁边有吗？
没有，我看包里边只有这一个麦克风。
那这个打开看看呢？这个把电打开。
这已经打开了。
这麦克风不行啊？
这个是。
这样按了，这里有电了，有电不是，主要是麦克风没有电。这个不是平时练功那个是吧？
不是平时练功，就是活动有活动拉出去，腰鼓队那是用的。
腰鼓队用的，上次腰鼓队这个好像就不响。
不是不响，是没拉走了，没在车上，没在那个手拉。
这个主要是这个，现在是他没用。有你那个。
一会儿他这个导电的时候，大家跟着前方哦。所以哪边都是。
他说这个不要插进去。
我知道，是这个不行。
这个不行，那我有插的要不要？
你有电池吗？
不要电池，我插的太不进去。
啊，那你用插
不是，你插也没用啊。
它没有，它
电池坏了还是？
不是，它这个新电池放上去它也不亮。
那就这个坏了。
我估计是这个话筒坏了，话筒坏了。我们要换个话筒。
这个我不知道，我有那个插线的，你直接插在这里。
插线的话筒有吗？
有，可是去哪就插。
OK。这个话筒，
我们可能现在的这个东西，我们买了一个最新的，是吧？用了1年多，蛮好用的。其实不用反而不好。就你们下次要用，你们就拿，我就送过来，不用你们来拿，没关系的。因为我们1年到头用的是真正的高模样，知道吧？Just for the moment.
Yes.
No, exactly.
I've been chosen.
You have been the chosen one. You next time. Get the line up.
让它正对着中国关系。不懂，这是肯定的。
这个东西是越买越要动，它原来用的是录音放带的。这个打开，是练嘛，这关了。在直播去了，在网上直播去了。现在在直播啊，让注意，他们在直播。
这是麦克风呀。
Hello，
喂。
关键是把声音加大。
喂。
哪个是大声？
喂。
对了，把声音。
Hello， testing。能听到吗？可以吗
Nice and loud. So they can all hear it. Testing 1, 2, 3. Hello. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. Not very loud. Can you make it like 5 times louder? Five times louder so they can hear it inside.
Will you speak? That's
Yeah,
very
nice and loud. Yeah, a lot of treble that cuts through. It's not very loud. Hello. Hello, testing 1, 2, 3. Way too soft. Hello. Hello, testing. Hello, testing. 1, 2, 3. Hello. Hello. Mark. Hello. Testing. Hello.
That's the loudest.
That's the loudest. Hello. 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 Testing. Hello. Hello. Hello.
没有避开这个意思，我等会儿我会。
That's it. That's it.
因为你还是等到开始讲那个，我就拿过手机会。
来放在下面，稳当点吧。
Yeah, I have. Go on, sing it. All right. Echo. Hello. We need Greg. It's all there. Hello. 1, 2, 3. Hello. Testing 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Think so. Hello. Can we stop the echo? Yeah. It's echoing. There must be some way to fix it. Yeah, the old echo. Hello. No. That's the one. Yep, keep on going. Fiddle around and find it. Hello. Hello. Hello, 1, 2, 3. It's echoing. Hello. 1, 2, 3. That's good. Yeah. Now, if you could get rid of the echo, it'd be perfect. Yep. Hello. Yeah, that's good. Now you've done it. Right. Yeah, is that the loudest you can get? Yeah, that's good. Okay, let's do that. All right. Yep, good. Hello. Okay. Fine. Hello. No. Yep. Put it back on. Yep. Okay. No. All right. Oh yeah, I'll be doing that.
来，你把照片。
Oh yeah, I'll be looking up times. Not just
What
looking at
happened?
the paper, but you I have to stand behind it so it doesn't echo. Could you move it out just a little bit,
我
maybe?
大概了解个情况，大概现在就这位女的法轮功的那个就叫同修吧，应该可能会有稍微是这样一个情况。
Hello, that's it. Okay.
调整不好。
Hello.
When you speak, I just turn it loud. Otherwise,
Yep.
When you are ready, let me know.
Okay. Let's go. Greetings everyone, and thank you for joining us here today. Last Thursday, I was presented with news that made me shudder. As a Falun Gong practitioner and one who advocates for rights and dignities of those facing oppression in China, I've heard many accounts of the persecution over the years, and some of them firsthand. As the 23-year-long persecution of Falun Gong in the hands of the Chinese Communist regime in China continues, the stories of harm, torture, brutality causing death, forced labour, and extreme mental persecution never cease to hit me to the core. But as a man, as a citizen, and as a fellow human being, the persecution account I was presented with last week just left me in a state of shock and mortification as to how a person or entity could deliberately treat another human being with such levels of depravity is beyond my scope of comprehension. The report stated that the Chinese Communist regime have initiated and promoted the use of sexual violence as a torture method, specifically aimed at female Falun Gong practitioners of conscience. The sexual violence reported includes sexual torture, using instruments in a sexual torture toolbox, specifically designed by authorities for inducing maximum harm against victims, and to make them break down in pain in order to have them sign false statements against their will and making them renounce their freedoms and beliefs. Refugee Mr. Chi Xiong will describe later in detail the severe sexual torture of this nature endured by his wife, university lecturer Yongqing Jiang, who remains illegally incarcerated at the Shillong Detention Centre in Jiu'an City, mainland China. Not only are the instruments in this sexual torture toolbox used to violate and cause harm, extreme harm of a sexual nature upon victims, most disturbingly, police are being trained to use this as a torture method. This includes physically assaulting victims with instruments from the toolbox, rape, and intimately handling female Falun Gong practitioners of conscience in any way they desire, without limitation and without consequence. This new form of torture applied to female Falun Gong practitioners, prisoners of conscience, is a new low in the level of depravity this regime will go to in its unrelenting breaches of human rights, of dignity and sanctity of its own citizens. In Australia, sexual assault, rape and sexual violence will land you in prison for up to 10 years. Ironically, in China, many of those sentenced to rape get the death penalty. Yet this abhorrent crime is being promoted by use by the very people that are meant to safeguard and protect others. In democratic societies, police protect the community and ensure the well-being of its citizens. But in China, they're instructed by the communist regime to sexually assault prisoners of conscience in order to renounce their beliefs, their freedoms, and their own human sanctity. The CCP erodes the morals of society, erodes citizens' trust in others, breaks all moral boundaries, and rules by instilling fear. Falun Gong practitioners both inside and outside of China have peacefully resisted the brutal persecution for over 23 years, breaking through fear and risking their lives to speak the truth and speak out about the horrific nature and barbarity the communist regime inflicts on the people of China. It has been well documented that the Chinese Communist Party have imprisoned possibly millions of Falun Gong practitioners in China merely for practicing their faith. And it has been estimated by numerous credible researchers such as Goodman, Matus and Kilgore that between 60,000 to 90,000 organ transplants occur each year in China. However, numerous recent evidence presented at the China Tribunal also suggests that many of these organ transplants are likely forced organ harvestings of Falun Gong practitioners. Many organs which are extracted from Falun Gong practitioners while they are alive. So if you do the maths, it could be that millions of Falun Gong practitioners have been tortured and killed in China simply for their beliefs. With up to 100 million people in China practicing Falun Gong, it is by far one of the largest persecutions the world has seen in recent history. A similar fate has been endured by the Uyghurs, Tibetans, Hong Kongers, Taiwanese, democracy advocates, activists, Christians, and other people of faith, all of who have been wrongly persecuted and oppressed by this murderous regime. Many of the crimes against humanity committed by the CCP have been highlighted by prominent figures in the international community. In 2019, an independent legal tribunal in London, known as the China Tribunal, chaired by Judge Sir Geoffrey Nice QC, concluded that forced organ harvesting has been committed for years throughout China on a significant scale, and that Falun Gong practitioners have been one and probably the main source of organ supply. They also said commission of crimes against humanity against the Falun Gong and Uyghurs have been proven beyond reasonable doubt. The report also stated governments and any who interact in any substantial way with the People's Republic of China should now recognise that they are interacting with a criminal state. On June last year, 12 United Nations Special Rapporteurs stated that they were extremely alarmed by credible information they received about forced organ harvesting in the hands of the Chinese Communist Party, targeting Falun Gong practitioners and other religions and ethnic minorities. And this year, The peer-reviewed medical journal, American Journal of Transplantation, published a paper which concluded that because these organ donors could have only been prisoners, our findings strongly suggest that physicians in the People's Republic of China have participated in executions by organ removal. We stand here today to urge the Chinese Communist Party to immediately cease all forms of torture, including sexual torture against Falun Gong practitioners and other prisoners of conscience in China. We call upon the Chinese Communist Party to immediately release Yongqing Jiang, as well as other countless prisoners of conscience that remain illegally incarcerated for merely practicing their faith. And we call upon the Australian government and the global community to hold the Chinese Communist Party accountable for the depraved human rights abuses that are still happening today on Chinese soil. I'd like to thank you all for coming here today, and I'd also like to thank Mr. Qi Zhang, Miss Qi Zhang's husband and their children for bravely coming here today. They will speak to you next about the details of Miss Yongqing Jiang's sufferings. Thank you, Mr. Qi Zhang.
你整个念完出来。
各位澳洲的朋友，大家好。今天我们来到中领馆前，是为了营救我的妻子江永琴。我的妻子江永琴曾是浙江理工大学的一名教师，也是一名法轮功修炼者。她因修炼法轮功，失去了大学的工作。 为躲避抓捕而流离失所，目前生活在中国大陆吉林省吉林市。今年6月12号，吉林市龙潭区新安派出所的警察从家中绑架了我的妻子。当时这些警察连警服都没穿。 也没有出示任何搜查证件，就强行把我家的门撬开，抄走了家里很多东西，并且把我的家人都绑架走了，其中包括我8岁的小女儿，也被带到公安局，被警察非法审讯。我的岳母已86高龄。 他被这突如其来的事惊吓后，导致精神痴呆，不认识人了，全家处于极度悲痛中。而我的妻子江永琴被警察绑架后，先是被非法关押在新安派出所，第2天，她被转关到吉林市龙潭区水部宾馆的102房间。 在此被警察24小时严密监控，被非法审讯，遭刑讯逼供。大约在7月7日或8日下午2点至3点左右，警察给我妻子。 闻所未闻的酷刑工具箱，这个工具箱里面有牙签、器械、药品、电线、春药等等，都是让受刑者痛不欲生的恐怖刑具。 参与折磨我的妻子的4个打手都是男人，2人是吉林省公安厅特训室成员，1人被称为酷刑专家，1人是专家的助理李某，另2人是吉林市国保警察唐某、吕某。他们往我妻子的鼻孔里喷芥末油，塞点燃后的香烟，塞到鼻腔里的烟断了一半，留在他的鼻腔里。后来那半截烟头从我的妻子的喉咙里被咳了出来。他们见我妻子不屈服，酷刑专家指挥吉林市国保警察动手侵害，并用上某种仪器，即便发现我妻子来了月经，审讯专家仍毫无人性地要求继续。我的妻子被他们折磨了近2个小时，当时精神崩溃，万念俱灰。她被施完酷刑的当晚，又被带到吉林市龙台区新安派出所做了一份笔录。7月21日，警察把我妻子非法关押在吉林市苏南看守所。据悉，那个审听专家在酷刑现场还说，如果不屈服，就把工具箱留下，每天给江永行来一遍，并说实施那工具箱刑具的审讯。对其他人还有一定限制，但对法轮功学员想怎么整就怎么整。作为一名丈夫，当我从律师口中得知妻子遭受的折磨，我的心如刀绞。我的妻子是一名优秀的大学教师，她非常的善良，无论在工作中还是生活中，她都按照法轮功要求的真善人做一个好人。在教学工作中，她获得过许多奖项，很受大家的称赞。可就是这样一位好老师、好妻子、好母亲，却在中国大陆多次被中共当局迫害、骚扰、绑架、非法关押、酷刑虐待，使我们的家庭在这些年毫无宁日。早在2009年，我的妻子就因为修炼法轮功，被非法判刑3年，关押在浙江女子监狱。她被当作重点罪犯对待，被强迫穿囚服、铐手铐和脚镣，被奴强迫劳动生产奴工产品。杭州钱江牌电热毯都是在浙江女子监狱制作完成的。2012年3月，我的妻子出狱后，又多次遭到国保610社区人员的骚扰，有时被绑架到洗脑班，有时被绑架到看守所。我们的家庭在这些年里承受了巨大的磨难，这些年都没有过个安稳的日子，全家被恐吓得提心吊胆，无法安生。如今，我和孩子逃离中共魔爪，来到澳洲，得到澳洲政府的保护。但我的妻子因为中共不让她离境，使我们全家不能团聚。现在她又被非法关押、酷刑折磨，我的孩子担忧的每日以泪洗面，心神不宁。我真的无法理解，一个信仰真善忍的好人，能为社会、为家庭、为别人带来美好与帮助的人，为什么在中共治下就成为阶下囚，而且还遭到令人发指的迫害？真不知道做一个好人对中共有多大的威胁。难道做一个自私自利、不择手段、阴险毒辣的人就是中共欢迎的对象吗？如果是这样，那在这是非颠倒、善恶不分的昏庸国度里，人们还能生存多久呢？自从1999年7月，江泽民利用中共的权力开始对法轮功破坏以来，导致无数个像我这样的家庭和人伦悲剧的发生。 这种残酷迫害是由一个国家的政府下令授意，从上到下执行的。在中国，有数不尽的法轮功学员被警察骚扰、抄家、绑架、非法关押和判刑、酷刑虐待，甚至被迫害致死、活摘器官等等。这一幕幕的悲剧，一仗仗的血泪案例，映照出在我们曾深爱的国家，这个拥有5000岁月的国度，正变成怎样的人间炼狱。在这沉痛的时刻，在此，我向中共政府提出我的几点诉求：一、要求中共政府立即无条件释放我的妻子江永琴；二、要求严惩对江永琴施加酷刑的警察，将他们绳之以法，严惩公安部门的暴徒，为我的妻子鸣冤；三、要求中共政府立即停止对法轮功群体的迫害，公开审判迫害法轮功的元凶江泽民及其党羽，还中国信仰自由与人权自由。我的妻子能够向外界揭露中共对她的性迫害，需要很大的勇气。我想，当越来越多的世人知道中共是一个非人性、没有任何道德底线的组织，越来越多的人远离中共，才能早日结束中共对中国人民的统治，从而结束对法轮功的迫害。谢谢大家。
Hello, Australian friends. We are here today in front of the Chinese consulate to rescue my wife, Yongqin Jiang. My wife was a university lecturer at Zhejiang University of Technology and is also a Falun Gong practitioner. Due to the Chinese Communist regime's persecution of Falun Gong, she was expelled from the university and left home in order to avoid incarceration. She is now living in Jilin City in Jilin Province, mainland China. On June 12 of this year, police officers from Xin'an Police Station in Jilin City's Longtan district abducted my wife from her home. Without even presenting a warrant, the plain-clothed police officers forced the door open and confiscated many things from my home. They also detained my family members, including my 8-year-old daughter, who was taken to the Public Security Bureau for illegal interrogation. My wife's mother, who is 86 years old, was so traumatized by this sudden event that she lost her memory and could not recognize anyone. Our whole family was suffering extreme grief. After my wife was taken, she was detained at Xin'an Police Station. The next day, she was transferred to room 102 of the Shubu Hotel in Longtan District, Jilin City, where she was put under 24-hour surveillance, interrogated illegally and subjected to sexual violence in order to extract information and confessions. Between 2 and 3 p.m. on July 7 or 8, the police covered my wife's head with a black hood, put earplugs in her ears and dragged her from the hotel to a secret location where she was sexually assaulted by the officers. They used a grave new form of torture called the toolbox, which contained toothpicks, instruments, medicine bottles, wires, aphrodisiacs and other torture devices, all of which were designed to inflict excruciating pain upon the victim. There were 4 torturers, all men, involved in the sexual assault and torture of my wife. 2 were members of the Special Training Unit of the Jilin Provincial Public Security Department. 1 was a so-called expert in torture. 1 was named Lee, who was an assistant to the expert, and the other 2 were Jilin State Security Police officers named Tang and Lu. They sprayed mustard oil into my wife's nostrils and inserted lit cigarettes. The cigarette that was inserted into her nose broke in half and remained stuffed up her nasal cavity. The half cigarette was later coughed out through my wife's throat. When they saw that my wife would not yield, the torture experts directed the Jilin City State Security Police to sexually assault her and to using different kinds of instruments from the toolbox. Even though my wife was menstruating, the interrogation officers still ruthlessly insisted the torture continue. My wife was molested and tortured for almost 2 hours, until she broke down in devastation and gave in to the torturer's demands. The night after she was tortured, she was taken to the Xin'an police station in Longstam district, Jilin City, to make a statement. On July 21st, police illegally detained my wife again, this time at Shulam Detention Centre in Jilin City. It is reported that the torture experts of the provincial department at the scene of the assault said, quote, "If she does not give in, we will leave the toolbox here and use it on Yongqingjiang once a day," end of quote. He also said that the toolbox would be used for interrogation, and while there would be restrictions on its use for some people, the extent of torture that could be applied to female Falun Gong practitioners was without limitation. As a husband, when I heard from the lawyer about the torture my wife had been subjected to, it was heart-wrenching. My wife is an accomplished university lecturer and she is very kind. Whether at work or in everyday life, she follows Falun Gong's principles of truthfulness, compassion and forbearance in order to be a good person. She had won many awards in her teaching profession and was often praised and recognized for her efforts. However, this incredible teacher, wife and mother was harassed, kidnapped, illegally detained, tortured and sexually abused repeatedly by the Chinese Communist authorities in mainland China. Our family has no peace over these years. Back in 2009, my wife was illegally sentenced to 3 years of imprisonment in Zhejiang Women's Prison for practicing Falun Gong. She was treated as a key criminal, forced to wear prison uniforms, handcuffed and shackled. She was also subjected to forced labor, where she made slave labor products like the Hangzhou Xinjiang brand electric blankets, which were all made in Zhejiang Women's Prison. After my wife was released from prison in March 2012, she was repeatedly harassed by authorities and the 610 office, and was repeatedly taken away and detained for brainwashing classes or incarcerated at detention centres. Our family has endured tremendous emotional pain over these years and have not been able to rest peacefully. Our whole family have lived in anguish for her safety and shoulder a huge mental burden. At times we struggle to keep going. In 2019, my children and I escaped China and came to Australia to seek refuge. My wife was prevented from leaving China, leaving our family broken. With the knowledge of my wife's illegal detention and repeated torture, my 2 daughters are upset and in tears nearly every day. I genuinely cannot understand why such a good person, one who practices truthfulness, compassion and tolerance and brings goodness to society, family and others, could become a prisoner and be persecuted by the Chinese Communist Party in such a barbaric way. How much of a threat could a person with such virtues and honour in society be to the Chinese Communist Party? Is being selfish, unscrupulous, sinister and malicious welcomed by the Chinese Communist Party? If so, how can good people survive under the CCP where right and wrong are reversed and good and evil are indistinguishable? Since July 1999, when the CCP leader, Jiang Zemin, launched the campaign of brutal persecution against Falun Gong, it resulted in countless family and personal tragedies like mine. Millions of Falun Gong practitioners in China have experienced harassment, raids and illegal kidnapping, illegal imprisonment, torture and abuse, and some have been persecuted to death. There are also reports of live organ harvesting. This tragedy reflects what hell on earth looks like. From what was once a country with a rich 5,000-year heritage that we once loved so much. At this painful time for my family, I would like to appeal the following to the Chinese Communist Party. 1. I urge the Chinese Communist Party to immediately and unconditionally release my wife, Yongqing Zhang. 2. I call for the police officers and thugs at the Public Security Department who tortured and sexually abused Yongqing Zhang to be punished and brought to justice, and my wife given back her dignity. 3. I demand that the Chinese Communist Party immediately stop the persecution of Falun Gong, openly try the culprits of the persecution, including Jiang Zemin and his henchmen, and return freedom of faith and basic human rights to China. It took a lot of courage for my wife to reveal the sexual violence she endured at the hands of the Chinese Communist Party to the outside world. I believe that the more people are aware of the inhumane and barbaric nature of the CCP, the more they will keep their distance from it. The more people denounce the CCP for its actions and hold it to account, the sooner the CCP will end the bloodshed of the Chinese people and thus end the persecution of Falun Gong. Thank you all.
Leave it up and you may not speak. Is that correct?
Yeah. 哎，对，接上去，现在试一下。喂。大一点，哎，对。
喂。
好。
好了吗？
往那边再走一点，往左边走一点。好，对准啊。
喂。
好。
喂。
说吧。
喂，喂。
好，可以。可以说了。
要讲什么吗？是要讲什么吗？
对。 你就可以，你准备好了就可以说了。
贴地。
对。 听得见，你大声讲就行了。
喂，
好吧。
Testing。
对，你一说他就不会。
好，我是受害人的大女儿。我今天站在这里是强烈要求公众知道我的
你说那很舒服吗？就是你声音一大，它就会噪音就会响啊。说出来，或者你把口罩拉一下。
喂。
啊，等一下啊，我现在。对，起来，你现在说。
喂。
好，可以，挺好。
喂，我今天站在这里，我是受害人的大女儿，我今天站在这里是强烈要求公众知道我的委屈。
你围一下，它就会好。
喂。说实话，我真不明白他为什么会被关进去，我真的搞不明白了，真的没事找事儿，一定要去关一个正常人干什么？监狱里什么？监狱里什么？监狱里什么？喂。
说吧，连着说啊，不要。
我要求中共必须无条件释放我妈，然后还有那几个警察都必须受到法律制裁。
Wait. Just now you can see these are the families of Jiang Yongqing, and she has 3 children. One child is still in China. Yeah. Okay. Just now the daughters just said the CCP must release her mom. Just release my mom. I just don't understand why my mom, such a good person, could be detained. And all these people involved in torture must be accountable. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
像名誉这个人要发言。小胡啊，你要不要？
一直开着就行了。我发现它一关它就会响，你就开着。好吧，你往那边稍微走一点。
Today I represent of the China Democracy Movement Alliance of Australia to have our word here. We are very, very sad to hear the horrible story of Yongqing Zhang. In fact, the CCP has been systematically destroying the activities of various religious groups in mainland China for years. They do this in order to maintain the dictatorship of the CCP party culture. I was born in China and I have witnessed the whole story. The torture still lasts. As far as we know, truthfulness, compassion, forbearance preached by Falun Gong group is a force that promotes the righteousness of the society. Truthfulness means let us pursue the truth. Compassion, let us be kind. And the forbearance means peace, rationality, and non-violence. These are all the mainstream values of the world. However, the persecution of Falun Gong practitioners in mainland China continues and becomes more and more severe. Mailing leaflets can still be seen in some streets and communities. Falun Gong practitioners are an important force of promoting the freedom and democracy in China. Only by ending the dictatorship of CCP can truly bring about the spring of religious freedom. Thank you, everyone.
1个小时的。
That's the end of today's press release and the protest. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. 好，谢谢大家，我们今天就到这里了。
等一下，我想我们大家一起来呼吁一下啊！强烈抗议中共邪党灭绝人性的酷刑！
强烈抗议中共邪党灭绝人性的酷刑！
立即释放关押的法轮功学员江永琴！
立即释放关押的法轮功学员江永琴！
我们强烈抗议中共邪党破坏大法弟子、灭绝人性的酷刑！
我们强烈抗议中共邪党破坏大法弟子、灭绝人性的酷刑！
立即释放关押的法轮功学员江永琴！
立即释放关押的法轮功学员江永琴！
我们再次呼吁，立即释放关押的法轮功学员江永琴！
我们再次呼吁，立即释放关押的法轮功学员江永琴！
好，谢谢。我们今天就到此。谢谢。